everyone. Hello. I hope all of you are doing well. My name is Shriya Bansal and welcome to the next session where we talk about pattern problems. Now, understand that pattern problems are really popular these days and interviewers really like to ask you to, draw a pattern which is generic and is able to take any kind of input. And the reason for that is pattern problems are a very good way to assess your basic programming skills, right? Whether you know how to write if conditions, if you know how to write for loops, while loops, are you comfortable with both iterative and conditional statements, right? To be able to assess your basic problem solving skills, pattern problems comes really handy. So in this session, what we'll do is we'll not only just solve a bunch of problems based on patterns, bunch of popular problems based on patterns, but we will also try to figure out one pattern which you can actually use, or one single logic that you can actually use, which kind of works on all sort of pattern problems, right? Which can actually easily help you get started. Because the reason is that there are so many pattern problems that exist, right? So many different pattern problems that exist that it's not possible to be able to know all of them by heart, right? So what we'll do is we'll solve some generic problems, try to figure out one single logic which kind of works for all the pattern problems that you may be asked. Okay, so let's quickly get started. We'll start with some easier problems first, right? And then we will scale accordingly to basically design and write code for slightly harder and more complex patterns. Okay. So we are getting started with pattern problems. And the first pattern that we will do is this. So assume that you have been given the input value n, which is equal to 4. And based on that, this pattern should be received in the output. Similarly, let's say if the input is 3, right, this should be your output. Okay, so now this is a slightly easier problem, so you may use any simple idea that you want to be comfortable with, but I will simply get started in this problem also with the logic which I found to be very useful while solving questions. Okay, while solving specifically pattern problems. So what you do is, whenever you're given a pattern problem, now always try to design a grid around it. Okay, that helps a lot to be able to visualize the problem better. So, and that grid should kind of work for all kind of inputs. So if I try to kind of make a grid around it, it will sort of look like this, right? Okay, now once you draw it, then try to make some generalizing observations over here. Okay, what we can see is, first of all, if the value of n is equal to 4, the number of rows in the output is also 4, right? Which means if the value of n is 4, you want to have 4 rows in the output as well. Okay, the second case over here is, we start with the very first row with exactly 1 star. Okay, the second row has 2 stars. Okay, so the generalizing pattern for that is that for every row, right, the number of stars on that row is equal to basically the row number. If I consider this to be row 1, this to be row 2, this to be row 3, this to be row 4. So row 1 has 1 star, row 2 has 2 star, row 3 has 3 stars, and row 4 has 4 stars. Okay, so now I feel these two generalizing patterns should actually be enough for you to be able to design and implement the code for this. Okay, so we'll try to work on the similar grid pattern only in order to be able to write the code for this as well. So we assume that the value of int n is given to be over here. You can take any value which you are comfortable with. Now what we will do is, we know that the total rows, t rows, you can write. Always use these same, I would say, variable names also, so that it goes into your head and you remember it forever, is equal to n. Okay, And now you have to print all the rows. Okay, so it's like a matrix kind of a structure. So you go to each and every row. So you go int row is equal to 1, right? You have to go as long as total rows, and you do row plus plus. Remember, when you write like this, you could have directly written here 4 also, but then your code doesn't get generalized and you have a lot of hard coded values. Always try to make it as generalized as possible. Now over here, what you will do is always and always, first you will do the work for the current row, whatever you have to do, and then you will always prepare for the next row. Okay, if you have to do any preparations whatsoever. Now, the work for the current row is that you have to print as many stars equal to the value of row. Okay, so what you will do is you will write another loop, which is the count of stars, CST, right? And how many stars you have to print for a certain particular row equal to the row number. Okay, so row CST plus plus. And what do? You simply, in a single line, you just simply print the star. Okay, so if the row value is 2, what you will be doing is this for loop will basically run 2 times, for CST equal to 1 and for CST equal to 2. If this row number is 4, then this loop will run 4 times and will print 4 stars in a single row. Now after this, for the next row, there is no as such preparation required, except for the fact that you have to take your cursor to the next line for printing. So when you just do print, sysO print, it basically does this, right? If for example, if the row value is 1, then you need to take your cursor to the next line, right? In order to be able to print the next set of stars. So that is what we are doing over here. And there you go, you have your pattern. Initially, this might look like a lot of work that you're doing right now, okay, just for printing this simple pattern. But trust me, as in when we'll move forward now, this will come in very, very handy. Okay, this will come very handy, and this will act as a good boilerplate code for the next set of patterns. Okay, so this is how you basically create your very first pattern and how you write the code for it in a basic, I would say, in a basic grid kind of a logic by using it.